I have a place on my heart is to see the Mental Health Court come to New Zealand or be woken up. And just as Sheldon says, there were some documents online in 2015 where lawyers and people got together to have a look at lightening up the judicial system of people who are travelling with journeys of mental illness on board. And really this came aboard for me was that a couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was standing in the court with my son, and we were waiting to go in, and there was so much happening. He wasn't in a good space. He had a lot of voices happening for him, and I thought, wow, this is a place that really is not a place that he and I should be. And then I thought, a mental health court, and I thought, well, praise the Lord, that that came into being. And so I thought, well, they've got an AOD court. Why aren't we pushing for our whānau and families that are struggling through judicial systems to actually have a mental health court? So that's where I am at today. It's my heart and passion to do that.
So was that the first time that you had really given thought to a mental health court? Had you seen anything about the mental health court? Because it does seem there was a bit of a groundswell in 2015. There were a number of sort of academic papers, I think, written about the mental health court, and there did seem to be a heightened interest then. Did you see some of that work and publicity at that time, or was it just the fact that you were with your son in court?
It was actually just because I was in court with my son. I'd never, ever knew that there would be an MHC until that thought just dropped in, and I thought, okay, I'll listen to that thought. And so I thought, well, I'm going to run with it. When I go home, I'm going to put mental health court and see if anyone's doing that. And that's where I came across those 2015 to 2016 papers, and then looked outside of New Zealand. And so, right across America and many other states, those courts are functioning. Right. And it's lightening the judicial system that we have here in New Zealand,
So, I mean, other than your son, have you had friends or whānau that have been impacted by the justice system and supposedly not treated well by the justice system, and particularly people that have mental health experience?
No, because my son is the only one for me in my space and place that has come up for me around where I'm sitting today. But I'm picking that as I go on, I'll probably find a lot more whānau coming up into the space that where my son is.
Yeah, because one of the revelations to me in doing a bit of research about this interview was that people are sort of recycled through the justice system. Right. A very high proportion of people in prison have mental health diagnoses, and I think I actually extracted some statistics on that. Have you got those in front of you, or do you want me to...
You can do that.
Yeah, well, it says here a 2016 report by the New Zealand Department of Corrections recorded that 91% of prisoners suffer from a lifetime diagnosis. And I'm a bit confused about this lifetime diagnosis because they describe it as, quote, any mental disorder. With 62% having received such a diagnosis within the past 12 months. So here they are, I guess, being somewhat shocked and surprised at receiving a diagnosis, and they end up in prison. So in contrast with these two statistics of 91% of prisoners or 62% that have just received a diagnosis, statistics for the community recorded only 40% of people as suffering from a lifetime diagnosis of any mental disorder, with only 21% having received such a diagnosis within the past month. So what do those statistics say to you, Gloria?
That's one percentage too many for me, and that something really needs to be done, because people are slipping through the cracks and into the cracks, and the services, I don't believe there are enough services out there to meet what's happening, and I believe the demand for people going through mental health is going to get bigger and bigger.
So what it says is that the main problem with the way in which our criminal justice system deals with mentally ill offenders is that it does not adequately provide for their diversion to mental health services. As a result, the majority of mentally ill offenders prosecuted through the courts do not receive treatment for their mental health issues. Now, that's a huge statement, isn't it? Because do you have any insight at all into what happens when a mentally ill person goes into prison? I mean, how do they get treatment? Do they just take their pills in and voluntarily take them, or?
From and this is only coming off reading from the internet around when people who are suffering from mental illness are going in, the systems that look after them sometimes don't give them their medications, or they don't get to see people, or the services go in when somebody's been brought into the police station there, but they really, from where I see it, that we actually need to have people sitting in the police stations when people come in, so that they're there as soon as they get in, they're not be called in. And I believe that peer support specialists and a trainer as peer support specialists need to sit on some of those seats in there, because I have the deepest experience of what it feels like and what it looks like, and it's frightening.
Well, I guess the picture that I have at the moment is that the police are the front line in mental health. Nobody else goes and checks out a disturbance or an incident where a mentally health a person with mental health experience is in trouble or in crisis, and then that person tends to be wheeled into a police station and held in the police station until somebody from an acute psychiatric unit turns up. And then if they deem that person to be unwell enough, they end up in an acute psychiatric unit.
That's right, yeah.
Well, I mean, that would be just about as frightening as being wheeled into a prison, I would have thought. And I mean, what impact of ending up in prison does that have on your mental health?
Well, I can give you a little story, and it's going back quite a little while. My son was taken into custody over in Manukau, and then I was rung up and said that he was in police custody. So I rang his mental health team and I said, I'm coming in with you to the police station. I'm coming in. So I met them at the police station, and it was actually quite a distraught place to be, walking in and have it. I forgot the central area where they popped us, but I could see him through the window, and it was like they were watching a caged animal, and it was just the negative conversations that were happening. No one realised that I was the mother to the boy that they were calling a monkey and all sorts of things, and I thought, wow, these are not the places for people like my son to be in, especially when the understanding is not, as you say, in that frontline place.
So, I mean, what insights did your son give you once the situation had settled down and you were able to talk to him?
Well, he actually found that acting like a monkey, because that's how they spoke to him, was a place that he should be, just to just to make whatever they were thinking come true for them. Right. And that's not a good place to push someone that's travelling through that unwellness and that. And what he found with him was that he gets isolated, and the very thing that that mental health says we shouldn't be isolated is that he gets isolated. He gets isolated at the hospital. He gets isolated in the prison, being contained at the cells and that. And I'm just thinking, wow, they tell us that our wellness comes through stepping out of that door, out of that room, and being social with other people around. So I can't quite figure out how that strand and the mental health sees that, we shouldn't be isolated.
Well, I mean, while we have seclusion in the psychiatric or mental health sector, there are a lot of parallels between acute mental health treatment and prison, because those seclusion rooms are, they're very like a prison cell, and there is a strong movement in this country to eliminate seclusion. I think by 2020, and I think it's one of the government organisations is leading the charge on that. But there is such a similarity between acute services and prison. I mean, do you think there have been any advances, Gloria, in terms of how we manage mental health in prisons?
From I read a story of a person who was talking about our recovery programs going in, and he was saying for him, because he was in a gang-related place, and he said for him it doesn't work unless you bring the whole family and people into those programs, not just the person that's sitting in jail and whoever the other people around, but because at the end of it, he's got to go back out into that community and be able not to go back through the door. Otherwise, it's just really they're just going to go in and out of the door, I think, I found on the thing, it's called the toll on the revolving door.
Right. Well, it's recycling people, really.
It is.
Well,
you're with Take It From Us on 104.6 Planet FM.
And we're talking today to Gloria White, who is championing the idea and proposal of a mental health court. And I guess one of the things that I should have done early on was to define what a mental health court is. It is a specialist criminal court that deals with mentally ill offenders. The court's primary purpose is to divert mentally ill offenders from the criminal justice system to mental health services. The premise upon which these mental health courts operate is that offending committed by mentally ill persons generally stems from an inability to control or manage their mental health symptoms, rather than any form of deliberate criminality. So, their mental health is responsible for whatever crimes they may be charged with. And the whole purpose of a mental health court is to divert these people into the mental health services rather than have them dealt with by criminal courts under the justice system. So is that a fair sort of description, Gloria?
Yeah, that is. I was reading another article, if you don't mind sharing. It's just a quick one that was done and posted in February 2016, and it said people travelling through their journeys of unwellness are being locked up when they shouldn't be. So it themes in what you were saying about our judicial system that we have today is unable, and I say unable, to meet the needs of our whānaus that are travelling in mental health unwellness, and they've really just been locked away. That.
Well, I mean, it's frightening enough to end up in a mental health hospital where the doors are locked. Obviously you've got more facilities there in comparison with prison. And if I just go back to my own experience earlier this year when I ended up in Fraser McDonald, in the Fraser McDonald unit, I mean, the doors are very definitely locked there, and people do not have the freedom and their freedom is very dependent on the opinions of the staff as to a patient's safety, and also how long they might be allowed out. And some people are not allowed out on their own, so freedom is restricted. I mean, yes, there's a very lovely deck there where you can walk outside, be in the sun, sit at some barbecue tables and look at the trees, and I guess prisoners certainly wouldn't have that privilege. But there is, the more I think about it, there is quite a parallel. And I just can't imagine what it would be like for a seriously mentally ill offender to be convicted and sentenced to prison and end up in solitary confinement virtually. If that's the way we are treating our prisoners with mental health experience, then I think the mental health court can't come fast enough. Yeah, so how are you going to be spreading the word about this mental health court, Gloria? Are you doing a bit of travelling in the next week or so?
Yes, I am. My two sisters and I are going to be travelling down to Dunedin to attend a conference down there which is called Breaking the Silence, and having a voice to put forward. They've got a panel there as well. So I just thought, wow, this is another stepping stone to going down and bringing this forward. Yeah. Hence why I thought about you and thought, well, that's another place I need to go. Yeah.
Get it out on Mental Health Radio, Take It From Us, which is what you're listening to today on Planet FM 104.6. And, of course, we upload this show to the Planet Audio website and also edit the program so that you can have an edited version of it on www.takeitfromus.co.nz. So who's organising this mental health meeting in Dunedin, Gloria?
They're called Life Matters. It's a suicide organisation, and I think they run they're from, I think, the Hawke's Bay or something, and that. Yeah, okay. They're on part of my Facebook, and so when they brought that ad up, I thought, I think this is a good place to go. Right. And it's a good site to be on, that Suicide for Life Matters, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
And is this all part of the Zero Suicide campaign that's been launched worldwide?
I'm picking it is, and I'm picking two because I'm not too sure. I don't have any facts on it, but I'm picking because there's an inquiry that's going to begin on part of the government, so I'm picking that voices are going to come. There's another part about when the government has a look at these reviews. I believe people with lived experience need to be interviewed.
Well, I was going to mention that review, and actually it's one of the questions that I didn't include in our interview, because I filled out the review online yesterday, and I think it's very important to say that today is the date that where this is the deadline today. So I would imagine that if you want to fill out and make comment about this review on the mental health and addictions services, that you need to get moving pretty quickly in order to be able to make your contribution. Have you made a contribution in terms of the mental health court, or did you not realise the deadline was today?
To be quite honest, I didn't realise the deadline was today, but I know if I get away from here, I'm going to go straight online and do that. It's really important, and I still believe that when they sit in offices, and I'm sorry, forgive me, but I still believe that they need to have people with lived experience voices sitting on those panels, not just filling out the application forms to lift our voices. Right. We need people sitting in that review office.
Well, this radio show is going to be celebrating 25 years of broadcasting, in fact, next week. And I suppose the critical factor with this radio show, Take It From Us, is that we have been able to provide a voice to those people with lived experience. And Gloria is very much an example of that. And I do want to invite our listeners to hear her candid and honest, open interview, which we played earlier this year. I think it was in late January, and that will be available on www.takeitfromus.co.nz, because it's inspiring story of, initially abuse, but recovery. And Gloria, you became a recovery educator, didn't you?
Yes, they did.
With Recovery Innovations, which later became RI International.
That's right, and I also completed a bachelor's degree in 2016. So that was something I didn't think I could do, but I did it, and I thought, wow, recovery is a really good place to be,
right?
And so I just praise the Lord for that one.
Right, and that bachelor's, what were the subjects? Was that in recovery, or was it
counselling? In
counselling,
yes, I did applied science and counselling.
Right. So will you be pursuing that area of expertise now, or do you want to become a counsellor, or are you going to do other things?
I think I'm going to sort of allow myself to be led where I need to go, and I'll be using the counselling skills and the beautiful strategies that have been taught to me. But at the moment, I think I've got a journey, and that's to get the mental health court up and running, and it's also to get people's voices up and going around mental health as well. Yeah.
Well, and certainly around the mental health, the proposal of a mental health court.
With Take It From Us on 104.6 Planet FM.
How do you hope to get a bit of momentum going on this?
Personally for me, I'm going to read this and that, and it's got, when the world says give up, and that hope whispers try it one more time. So I believe using that statement is that I'm not going to give up, but I understand that there's a lot of these, there's funding, there's all sorts out there, but I believe it'll come, and I believe that because I have a passion for it, that I'm going to see it come, and how I do that, I have to start having a look. I may have to have a look at what are some funding things out there. But again, getting my voice out, and and I started through Facebook, and it's a medium that I've started to use, but also I've come to you, Sheldon, at Planet Take It From Us, so that's another, and then going down to Dunedin, I hope to do a story there as well.